Pipeline's Tunnel is fun to play on 100 players. It's junk food type fun, where you just spam projectiles. But it's fun. So what if this was turned into a whole map? This is 100 unwilling lab rats in a literal circle, and it's pure chaos. Obviously, soldier and demo spam, good. And from that, short circuit, good. But a sleeper was the airstrike. With literally no map geometry, it's super common for your rockets to get eaten by teammates. Jumping can help you get your rocket past the first two guys, but it almost always ends up being blocked by some guy. So players started using the airstrike with the base jumper to spam that way. Keeping to the inner circle leaves you the least exposed, so everyone did it, which devolved the gameplay into a corner peeking simulator. Somehow, on a circle. But there's a problem. This first version ran with default settings, so red had a 12-second respawn. That was enough to make it super blue-sided, since red simply can't cope with blue's pressure. So what's the fix? What if we just didn't have respawn times? This actually worked out, and teams won or lost based on how good they were. This was despite differences, such as blue team being the lower bunk in the respawn apartment, so they have much better access to resupply. The cart being a source of cover, which can favor a team, and the map's orientation, where red has a peak advantage. But getting rid of respawn times evened things out. Rounds now last more than a few minutes, and the next problem became clear. Short circuit. Since literally every source of damage is from one angle, one ball nullifies everyone's projectiles. It became actually oppressive since engineers can pool their dispensers and spam short circuits to the point that there isn't even downtime to get shots in. The map would almost assuredly devolve into heavy spam long term, so what now? I wouldn't actually ban short circuit if it came down to it, but I tried banning it to see what happens. In short, it hurts blue. Spam becomes too overwhelming and blue can't push. So the short circuit needs to exist, but it also shuts down the one angle that exists. So add more angles then? In respect for the circle's sanctity, I avoided solutions that opened the walls, so I ended up scaling the map, then adding raised rings around the outer edge. Scaling the circle makes the curvature more gradual, which should make corner peeking much less prevalent. This worked out as planned. 1 then 2 rings was tested. 1 ring accomplished what we wanted, a clamp down on the short circuit oppression. It's tall enough that short circuit can't stop spam from both paths at the same time, so NGs have to make a choice on what to do. But since it was too tall to jump on, and the only way on was explosives or the box next to spawn, it made each end of the map super polarized in favor of their team. A second ring fixed this though. From here, the next issue we discovered was sniper, which makes sense when you think about it. The chord is massive sightlines throughout the whole map. So there's 2 options here. Segmenting the map to cap how long the chords are, or just adding a bunch of geometry to make sniping hard. For option 1, I tried walls segmenting the map at each checkpoint, but this turned out poorly. It reintroduced the short circuit problem, even worse than before too, since there's now well-defined doorways for every NG to spam balls into. Option 2 went way better. I created geometry according to the map's bias. So geometry that helps red at the start, neutral in the middle, and blue-sided at last. This first iteration was awkward and flawed, but it was already fun and had potential. So I remade it and iterated over it into the final version. The first area is pretty whatever. I slowly buffed red's high ground positions and stopped here. It's enough for red to slow blue down, but without becoming spawn camping. Good enough. Middle itself only had one flaw to address, which was forgetting that it's actually red-sided by default. Even though it's in the center, so both teams are on equal footing, it leans towards red because they start on the high ground while blue sits on the floor. This was straightforward and fixed with 2 changes. The main fix was a thin walkway around the sides, so blue can take high ground to push red out of strong positions. But blue can linger on it for long since you take a lot of spam and there's little room to maneuver. Second change was this platform, which helps blue with backing up and switching positions. It's a small buff, but it stacks up as blue is able to heal up and die less, making progress over time. From middle to last, I thought this open area would hurt red, but they were actually strong just sitting in the pit here. The problem, I think, was blue just had no cover and was oftentimes fighting 1 versus 30. Since blue don't push together in waves, everyone is dying on their own against the entire mass of red players. So this area was split in half, with a door controlled from blue's side. This was originally added to force red team to split up, then the door to cut sightlines. Red would spam out of it and build sentries inside, which blue couldn't do much to counter. A bunch of platforms were added to help blue push. This platform in the middle of glass, platforms along the side, platforms at the choke to jump over the span, and this stupid bootleg vent. The forced crouching make this vent only useful as a last resort to keep red in check and stop blue from being pushed back to spawn. It also stops short of any useful peeks into last. As for last itself, the concept was to challenge red on making the right choice. 2 entryways into a dead-end bunker. You can take the safe tunnel on the right or the left, exposing yourself to blue. Maybe you think there's time to take the safe route and get to the cart in time. Or maybe you need to stall the cart, even if you die. There is also a decision on whether you keep the upper routes clear or double down on defense and hope you can bunker until time runs out. The final version ended up with a crawl space at the top, stairs to the right, and a one-way glass window along the bottom. The crawl space used to be a great texture that allowed explosives to pass through, and I thought this was important to keep it from being overpowered, but from much testing, the bunker just can't lose, and that wasn't needed. This path has also been shortened. It used to go all the way to red spawn, but that backfired because red demos and soldiers would use it against blue, whether to shoot down or across to anyone getting on it. The walls enclosing red used to not reach the ceiling, so you could shoot down into red team. But this was a mistake, because it means red can also shoot out of it. There would be red demos who spent the entire time spamming it, and it made the roof outside unusable. This needed to be fixed, so blue had somewhere to set up. The glass divider was added because it was way too easy for red to shut down the corner. Then it got nerfed into one-way glass, since in testing, even multiple flaw loopers at once couldn't break through. Making it one-way forces red to take risks and step outside if they want to know what's coming. The thought process behind the stairs was simple. Red has strong floor control, and blue needed more avenues to break red open. It happened to create interesting gameplay for blue. Do you cause damage to the bunker or disrupt red spawn? This was pretty balanced because there's always a constant flow of red players around this area, so blue don't get to be here for long. All that sounds really overpowered on paper, and that's also what I thought, but testing kept proving otherwise. I added these things over time, and red bunker just wouldn't lose. What ended up being necessary was moving the last point back. It used to be at the very end of the bunker, but the problem is that NGs can build deeply recessed sentries that blue simply can't touch, yet still cover the cart well. There's definitely other ways to nerf how powerful that is, but the simple solution that worked was moving the point back and adding a rollback zone. So red can still bunker, but now they need to step out and actively protect the cart not to lose. In testing, this seemed to be about the right balance. Red still has a massive cluster of dispensers, which is basically a mobile resupply cabinet, so defending the cart is challenging but not impossible. And blue definitely has the tools to take enough space to cap. So the map is maximum chaos. Literally no flanks, just 100 players mashed together, and somehow fun. There's probably still adjustments to be made, since there's only so much you can privately test, but it's fine to release. The map will be up on the server with a scrappy art pass, just so people can play it, without the mess of dev textures. Whenever a full art pass is done, the map will get swapped out.
So eyes are not spheres.